YNW Melly is having it rough. He's been locked up for nearly 6 years, still fighting a double murder case that refuses to go away. And now, just as his bond hearing heats up, a resurfaced clip of him describing his alter ego, Melvin, is going viral.
When the night hits, he really come, and it's like, Melvin is just like, once you play with Melly to a certain extent, Melvin just don't like that. Melvin on your ass.
It might sound like typical Melly talk, but fans are convinced he let more slip than he meant to. That clip, it's part of a much longer moment that's now being dissected frame by frame, and some believe it could completely change how this case is viewed. Let's break it all down. The documentary that could change the game. Any discussion about this trial would be incomplete without discussing how YNW Melly has conducted himself over the last few weeks. People first noticed the rapper's odd behavior on the third day of the trial when he was seen sitting with his hands folded and eyes closed in prayer, mumbling to himself before opening his eyes and blowing kisses to the seated gallery. Among the people to notice this was Juvie's mother, Leandra Phillips, and she did not take kindly to it. She took the opportunity to speak with NBC Miami and said, "He did it a couple times. That wasn't his first time. I walked out because I don't, what you praying for? You sitting there like you ain't got no remorse. Like every time I walk in, you smiling. This ain't the time for that. This is sad. This case is serious." In addition to all of this, Melly has also been repeatedly seen laughing and joking around with his lawyer. In a strange incident, video footage also showcased the rapper making eye contact with someone in the seated gallery and repeating the same words over and over while getting extremely agitated. As expected, people had a variety of reactions to all of this on the internet. While most people were of the belief that he did not care about the fact that he is facing the death penalty, others contend that because Melly has been in prison since early 2019, this stuff is not exactly new for him. Regardless, this behavior becomes even stranger because the rapper was seen wiping away tears on the first day of the trial when footage of his friends played in court. Whatever the reality may be, Melly must also be aware of the fact that the testimonies from the medical examiners and Sergeant Williams support what law enforcement had initially reported. Melly had shot both men. Having the death penalty on the table is stressful enough, but that decision does not even have to be unanimous for him to be convicted. That's right, Governor Ron DeSantis' non-unanimous death sentence ruling means that only 8 of the 12 jurors need to recommend the death penalty for the sentence to be carried out. If convicted, YNW Melly would be one of the first people to go down as a result of this law. The jurors' site visit will undoubtedly play a massive role in helping them form their decisions about what really happened. So let's take a second and just go through what shocking details have come up in court so far. Melly was not in the car with Bortland when he drove to the hospital with Sack Chaser and Juvie, but phone data has shown that all 4 men were together about 15 minutes before that. That is not all though, because the prosecution has alleged that Melly hit up Fredo Bang to come pick him up. Felicia Holmes' testimony may have given Melly an ace in the hole because it allowed his lawyers to file for a mistrial. Even if he ends up being found guilty, should he appeal, there is a possibility that the Florida Supreme Court could end up granting the mistrial, giving the rapper another shot at proving his innocence. We also know that Melly had some conflict with Sack Chaser a couple of months before he was killed, and the rapper's conversation with his mother showed him ask for a .40 caliber gun, the exact kind used to kill both victims. The prosecution initially struggled to establish a motive, grasping at straws by bringing in Detective Danny Polo and trying to make this a gang-related killing. But as I had mentioned earlier, the prosecution does not need to establish a motive, and the testimonies of both medical examiners and Sergeant Williams paint a picture that perfectly aligns with what forensic evidence had initially revealed all the way back in February 2019. But for all those testimonies, the fact remains that Florida law enforcement has failed to find the murder weapon, which prevents the prosecution from building a truly ironclad argument. These are all things that have been established in the courtroom over the last few weeks, but there are things that happened outside the courtroom leading up to the trial that might shed some light on a few things. There are 2 major events I want to take a minute to talk about. The first focuses on what YNW Bortland has been up to over the last few years, and the second is all about a wrongful death suit that might just give the prosecution the motive they have been looking for all this time. So back in April 2020, Melly ended up getting COVID-19 and requested to be placed on house arrest. The judge denied his request, but then granted Bortland the same request the next month. This was definitely odd because Bortland was facing 2 counts of accessory after the fact in addition to first-degree murder charges. In a statement shared by Bortland's lawyer, he stated that while his client has been granted house arrest, Melly will remain in prison, which was exactly what ended up happening. Bortland has been more or less a free man, while his co-defendant has been behind bars. Reports in January 2023 also alleged that Bortland spoke to law enforcement, stating that he was just the driver. Bortland will go on trial in October this year, which gives the prosecution plenty of time to strengthen its case against Melly, which might also help Bortland in his defense. Testimonies have already proven that there was only one man with one gun who shot both Sack Chaser and Juvie, and who knows what else will come out before October. This entire scenario also creates a very interesting dynamic between Melly and Bortland. What if Melly's defense pivots to placing more of the blame on Bortland? Or what if Bortland cuts a deal that throws Melly under the bus? If these men can go to the extent of staging a drive-by shooting to cover up their crimes, then all bets are off when it comes to fighting for their freedom. There is also a very real possibility that Melly may have grown resentful of Bortland over the years because his time in prison has been anything but comfortable. The rapper has spoken about the difficult conditions he has had to face behind bars, including having his phone privileges taken away from him over minor infractions. But that is not all, as Melly has also spoken about how he is genuinely feared for his life. In an Instagram post that spoke about the numerous difficulties he has been facing, the rapper also wrote, "I have been threatened by deputies, lieutenants, and sergeants that say they will hide me from the world and threaten to beat my ass every day. And if I tell my lawyers, they will lie and say I hit them first." Words from Sergeant Anthony Kidd and Lieutenant Jean Baptiste. "I have literally been hidden from the world, so I have no other choice but to believe the next step is them beating one half to death like they do to other inmates almost daily here at the main ale in Broward County." On the surface, at least, it looks like Melly should have every reason to be upset at how much easier the last few years have been for Bortland, so it will be interesting to see how things play out between them over the course of their trials. The second thing I want to talk about is the wrongful death suit filed by Sack Chaser and Juvie's families against Bortland and Melly back in October 2020. The lawsuit went on to state that the four men had a large sum of money coming in, but could not agree on how it would be distributed. A dispute over money is one of the oldest motives there is, and one of the lawyers filing the suit wrote as much. When there are less people splitting up the prospective money, the people on the receiving end will get more. This claim was supported by Juvie's father as well. He revealed that the disagreement stemmed from their plans to sell the YNW brand for marketing and licensing purposes. He said that Melly and Sack Chaser were expected to receive $200,000 each, while Juvie would have gotten $100,000 from the $500,000 deal. Juvie's father had absolutely no doubt about the fact that Melly was responsible for his son's death.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son's death on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation, when I finally talked to him and Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They never came to town, never came to my son's funeral.
If these claims are actually true and a deal was on the table, then it completely changes the dynamic between the four men. They weren't just people who had been friends for ages. They were business partners facing a major disagreement about their brand with a large sum of money involved. But the thing is, at least for now, this secondary suit has had nothing to do with the trial that is going on right now. As things stand, the prosecution is still piecing together the hour or so between the four men leaving the recording studio and Bortland showing up at the hospital in October 2018. But in the process of doing so in court, expert testimonies and other evidence have shown that Melly is potentially a cold-blooded killer who murdered two of his closest friends over a financial dispute. A few months after Sack Chaser and Juvie died, a documentary focused on Melly dove into the relationship he shared with both men. Not only had he referred to Juvie as his day one, he also said, "We got the same brain. Me and all my had the same dream growing up." But somewhere along the line, did Melly decide his dream was more important than theirs? And if he did, was it enough for him to kill them? The rest of the trial will most probably reveal more shocking details about YNW Melly. But as of right now, who knows how things are going to go down? The evidence, surveillance, confession, and gangland connections.
We're going to have a break in the case of a double murder in Miramar.
Two people now behind bars, including a South Florida rapper who actually sings a popular song about murder.
Jamel Maurice Demons, alias YNW Melly, was charged with the murder of his two best friends, Anthony Williams, alias YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas, alias YNW Juvie. The day he turned himself in on February 13th, Miramar police tweeted, "Jamel Demons, aka YNW Melly, and Cortland Henry have been arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder murder. The victims, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr., were killed on October 26, 2018. The investigation, supported by forensic evidence, has concluded that Demons shot and killed Williams and Thomas Jr., and that Demons and Henry staged the crime scene to resemble a drive-by shooting. Melly has had to wait for his trial for about 4 years while in jail. And now, as the case draws to a conclusion, the prosecution has revealed a lot of shocking information that puts Melly in a bad light and makes him look guilty. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was found on Melly's Instagram account. While rappers are known to self-snitch from time to time, Melly may have just ended his life with a single Instagram DM. During the prosecution's opening statements, they revealed that they had an incriminating Instagram text that Melly had sent to fellow rapper Peasy Gambino. It turns out that Peasy had reached out to Melly the morning the shooting happened to confirm whether the YNW rapper was okay.
One individual, and specifically, sends out, and I want to quote the message exactly that you will hear. Yo, homie, you good?
YNW Melly's reply was chilling and may prove crucial in the outcome of the case. The reply makes the rapper look guilty, as he may have snitched on himself and confessed to the murder. The prosecutor revealed that the rapper replied to the DM saying, "I did that. Shh."
And Mr. Demons responds very succinctly, I did that. Shh.
Did this really prove that Melly had killed his two best friends, people he had grown up with? It is important to remember that Melly is facing the death penalty, so the prosecution has to prove without reasonable doubt that the rapper actually confessed to the murders in the Instagram text. The first problem that arises is the context in which the text message was sent. It is possible that the rappers were talking about anything. However, the prosecution shot this idea down by arguing that the only context that the message could have been sent was regarding the shooting that had happened earlier. This is because Melly had been flooded with messages that morning and all had a similar theme. They were inquiring about the tragic incident.
The context around the messages matters. So in the context of this message, this individual is reaching out, asking if Mr. Demons is good, after he's been tagged in multiple social media posts about this this shooting.
According to the prosecutor, since everyone in Melly's DMs was asking him about the alleged drive-by, then that would have been the only thing he was responding to. Well, the defense had a well-crafted response to the text. One detail in the text may have saved Melly's life. As it turns out, the autocorrect feature may be Melly's saving grace. According to the rapper's defense, the spelling of the word "that" was not consistent with what the rapper used in other instances when he texted.
Will you tell the jury how he spells that? That, D-A-T.
According to Melly's defense attorney, all the text messages that the prosecution had brought up in the trial showed that Melly spelled the word "that" as D-A-T.
So when Melly spells the word "that," you want me to go through all 19 pages? That every time, he does not spell it T-H-A-T, but D-A-T.
Did this mean that someone else was using Melly's phone? Was it even his phone, or did his friends also use the phone? More details were revealed in trying to answer this question. The prosecution proved that the phone in question was actually Melly's. Apparently, detectives found photos of a Western Union receipt with Melly's name and phone number, which tied the phone number to Melly's name.
To read the print down at the bottom of this Western Union.
It says Janelle Demons, 604 9th Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida, 32962, USA, and phone number 772-713-9807.
However, one of Melly's friends, Adrian Davis, who was present with the group at the studio, took to the stand and gave a shocking revelation. It turns out that in the morning, after they received news that their friends had been shot and killed, they all rushed to their phones. However, Melly could not find his phone.
Did anyone get on their phone?
Yeah.
Did anyone have any problem locating their phone?
Yes.
Who was that?
Jamel.
This opened a whole can of worms. Where was Melly's phone this whole time? And if he did not have his phone at the time the incriminating text was sent, then who did? However, while on the stand, Davis revealed that multiple people often use Melly's phone. In fact, the whole crew used each other's phones from time to time.
We all use this phone sometimes. We all use each other's phones.
So where was Melly's phone? Well, the prosecution seemed to answer this question. According to them, detectives had used cell phone data to track the whereabouts of Melly's phone that morning. First, detectives were able to determine that the rapper was in possession of his cell phone while leaving the studio. Using CCTV footage, Melly can be seen leaving the studio building with his phone in hand. Melly and his crew left the studio in 2 cars. Cops used the phones from these 2 vehicles to track their locations throughout that morning. While the phones in the red Mitsubishi showed that it headed for Sunset Lakes, the phones in the gray Jeep showed that it took a detour. To prove that the data from the cell phones was accurately pointing detectives toward the Jeep's whereabouts that morning, the prosecution made it clear that Melly and Sack Chaser's phones were the same make and model. Apart from that, the 2 also used the exact same cell phone plan, meaning that their phones were using the same service and cell towers. Therefore, if the data was accurate, the path taken by the 2 phones should be similar, which the prosecution tried to prove in the trial. By comparing the information from the 2 cell phones and tracking the vehicle's movements, detectives revealed that the Jeep traveled up to Pines Boulevard and then proceeded west to the edge of the Everglades. According to the prosecution, this area is desolate. The Jeep then continued further south and turned onto Pembroke Road. This is where the prosecution revealed a shocking detail. Pembroke Road dead ends at a trash facility. There are no residential houses in that area. Apart from that, there were no cameras that would have helped the cops to visually locate the car. The area did not have any streetlights or people passing, making it a perfect place to carry out the murders. The prosecution further revealed that there were no other cell phones at Pembroke Road that morning. This means that the 4 rappers were alone that night.
The state intends to show the evidence that the phone was there at the murder scene, and there were no other phones there. There is no one else out there at 4 in the morning.
Later, the prosecution revealed even more damning evidence. Melly made a FaceTime call to his then-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton. This was also confirmed by Mariah's mother, who was also in the house when the call came in. This is because Mariah screamed, waking up her mother, who went to check what was going on. After getting off the FaceTime call, the rapper then sent a pin location at 4:42 a.m. to Frederick Givens, popularly known as Fredo Bang, a rapper from Louisiana. So who is telling the truth? Did Melly's friend lie under oath, or was the data collected from the cell phone towers inaccurate? Adrian Davis had a lot more to say while on the stand regarding that morning when they left the studio. According to his testimony, Melly was with them at the house. Surveillance footage clearly showed Melly getting into the gray Jeep. On the other hand, Davis left in the red Mitsubishi. So if the Jeep took a detour and went all the way to Pembroke Road while the Mitsubishi went to Sunset Lakes, how did Melly find himself at his house in Sunset Lakes together with the occupants in the red Mitsubishi? Well, according to Davis, along the way, their vehicle stopped and Melly hopped in.
Did there come a time that you were woken up before you got to the house?
Yes.
What happened?
We pulled over, and that's when Melly got in the car with us.
However, he was asleep and did not remember where they stopped. But one thing he was sure about was that when they got into the house, Melly was present with them. According to Davis, Melly was present with them when the news about the shooting and death of their friends came in. While Melly seems to have an alibi, another member of the crew who was also present that day took to the stand to testify. This was none other than Trayvon Glass, YNW Juvie's producer. At first, the defense had a problem with Trayvon taking the stand, citing that he had been dodging the cops for the past 4 years and that he heavily used marijuana. Apart from that, Trayvon was currently out on bail, and it seems he had been forced to be there. However, what he revealed when he was on the stand may blow Melly's alibi out of the water. According to his testimony, when they got to Melly's house in the red Jeep, the people who got into the car while at the studio were the ones who were present at the house.
When you got to the house gate at Melly's house, who was inside your vehicle, the red Mitsubishi?
Same people you seen get in the car.
According to Trayvon, Melly was not with them at the house, nor were they together when news reports came in of the alleged drive-by shooting. 2 people who were in the red Mitsubishi gave conflicting testimonies while on the stand. So who was lying under oath? It seems that the jury will have their work cut out for them with all this evidence. Although it did look as if Melly had just snitched on himself on an Instagram text, the defense may have been able to cast doubt and change the jury's mind. However, a lot of information seems to be putting Melly at the crime scene, most notably his cell phone. Apart from cell phone data, we will also see that many other people involved in the case may have used social media to confirm that Melly may have had a hand in the murders, or at least had something to do with it. The legal battle, detention, defense, and what's next? Jamel Maurice Demons, alias YNW Melly, is no stranger to criminal activity. The rapper's upbringing saw him join the Bloods gang at a young age. Having been raised by his mom, YNW Melly seemed to lack a father figure in his early life. This, coupled with his association with the Bloods, meant that he would soon be involved in criminal activity. When he was only 16, the teenager was arrested for shooting at a group of students near Vero Beach High School. This resulted in the rapper being convicted of aggravated battery, discharging a firearm in public, and 2 counts of aggravated assault, and was sentenced to several months behind bars before being released on probation. However, the following year, the rapper was arrested for violating his probation. He was kept behind bars until March 2018. After he was released, the talented rapper was arrested again in Fort Myers 2 months later. This time, he was in possession of weed, drug paraphernalia, and weapons and ammunition. However, he was later released after bonding out, and in January 2019, the rapper was again arrested in possession of weed. The following month, YNW Melly would be arrested on charges that would shape his life for the next 4 years.
2 men are in jail this morning, including an up-and-coming Florida rapper. Both men are charged in a double murder. Police are saying the 2 staged a crime scene to make it look like a drive-by shooting.
On the 12th of February 2019, news broke out that Melly had been arrested in connection to the death of 2 of his friends, Anthony Williams, alias YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas, alias YNW Juvie. The 2 were aged 21 and 19 respectively, and had been close friends with Demon. Murdered on the 21st of October 2018, it was widely believed that it was a drive-by shooting, as one of the victims' friends, YNW Bortland, drove the pair to the hospital in a Jeep Compass. However, months of investigation led the cops to believe that Demon was responsible for his friend's death and that Bortland had helped him cover up the crime. The pair were arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The police statement read, Jamel Demons, aka YNW Melly, and Cortland Henry have been arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr., were killed on October 26, 2018. The investigation, supported by forensic evidence, has concluded that Demons shot and killed Williams and Thomas Jr., and that Demons and Henry staged the crime scene to resemble a drive-by shooting. The rapper was quick to give his fans an update on the situation on Instagram, informing them that he would be turning himself in to authorities, as well as denying all allegations against himself and YNW Bortland. In the now-deleted Instagram post, Melly wrote, "To all my fans and supporters, no, I did not get locked up in Washington, but I am turning myself in today. I want you guys to know I love you and appreciate every single one of y'all. A couple months ago, I lost my 2 brothers by violence, and now the system wants to find justice. Unfortunately, a lot of rumors and lies are being said, but no worries, God is with me and my brother YNW Bortland. And we want y'all to remember it's a YNW family. I love you, YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie. Free us." The state of Florida also announced that it would seek capital punishment against Melly, as prosecutors believe they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the rapper murdered his 2 friends. According to court documents, prosecutors said that the murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and he committed homicide in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner. It is important to note that Florida is one of the 30 states where capital punishment is legal. According to police statements, YNW Bortland told cops that he and the 2 victims had just wrapped a late-night studio session when a car pulled up on his driver's side and opened fire as he was pulling off the freeway. He then drove to an emergency room in the early morning hours, asking for help for his 2 friends in his car, claiming they had been shot in a drive-by. Initial investigations that led to the arrest of Melly and Bortland revealed shocking information. The cops claimed that they had forensic evidence that proved Demon pulled the trigger after determining that neither victim was shot from outside, but rather from inside the car, disproving the drive-by account. They also confirmed that there were 8 bullet holes along the right side of the vehicle where Sack Chaser and Juvie had sat that night. Investigators also found a shell casing inside the vehicle, along with 8 matching shell casings in a different location where they think Melly and Bortland shot the car to make it look like a drive-by. They also reported that they believe that the initial shot was fired from inside the car on the left rear passenger side. First, a review of CCTV footage that showed the group leaving the studio that night helped investigators determine that Melly had been sitting on the left rear passenger side of the car. Second, evidence from the autopsy revealed that both victims' wound paths to their heads were from a left to right direction. This directly contradicted the statements made by Bortland and does not support the statements of a drive-by shooting that occurred on the right side of the vehicle. Apart from that, police allege that Melly and Bortland drove around with the bodies of the two victims after they had been shot for a period of time before driving to the hospital. Interestingly, Bortland later told police that Melly was, in fact, in the same car as them, but eventually got into another vehicle. According to the authorities, they could prove that Demon murdered his friends for financial gain. After his arrest, his lawyers were quick to his defense, stating that, "We disagree with the assertions made in the notice and look forward to disapproving the charges." Melly's lawyers further proclaimed his innocence, claiming there was no murder weapon retrieved, no witnesses, no DNA evidence, and no motive. Hours after news broke of Melly's arrest, thousands of netizens clumsily linked the arrest to the rapper's breakout 2017 hit "Murder on My Mind," a song released a full 18 months before Sack Chaser and Juvie were killed. The song combined punishing loneliness with vivid and brutal murder fantasies. The record was released while he was still in prison, where he served a 1-year sentence after being involved in a shootout near his high school in Vero Beach, Florida. Shortly after the rapper's release in 2017, he went back to jail for violating his probation. According to him, though prosecutors got him on a handful of minor infractions, his return to jail hinged on the actions of the state attorney, who read the second verse of the song to the courtroom. After his arrest, his lawyers believed that if using the song seemed to work when Melly was up for a handful of misdemeanors, then it would surely work now that he's on trial for double homicide. The defense anticipates that the prosecution will attempt to use the same song and lyrics in the same manner for the above referenced case, a court document read. Apart from seeking that the song not be used in the trial, Melly's lawyers tried to get him out on bond as he had no intentions of running away. According to his lawyers, all his friends and family resided in Florida, therefore proving he'd have no reason to flee. The defendant poses no flight risk, as he knew what the charges were pending against him and he still chose to self-surrender, the rapper's lawyers told the court. If he wanted to run, he would have run when learning of the misidentification of the other individual that was arrested at the venue in the District of Columbia. Apparently, after the rapper's arrest warrant was issued, the cops ended up arresting someone misidentified as Melly. His lawyers argued that if the client was going to take advantage of the possibility of leaving the state, he would have already done so. Unfortunately, their efforts were futile as the court denied Melly bond, and he remained in jail for 4 years as he waited for the trial to start. The rapper's woes did not stop there, as he was also named as a suspect in the shooting death of Deputy Gary Chambliss, a couple weeks after being arrested on the double murder charge. According to a witness, Demon and Bortland were standing with a group of men who chucked a bottle at a passing car. An occupant in the vehicle fired a weapon at the group, and one of the rappers allegedly returned fire. Standing 170 yards away, Chambliss was hit with a stray bullet and died.